Hi, I'm John Hink. I'm from Veritaz Technologies. I'm a technical marketing engineer. I've got Maya here with me. She's from engineering, and we're going to talk to you about how to dramatically reduce cloud costs with ease through deduplication technology. What are we really talking about here? I'm going to give you a little bit of a history lesson. So cloud object storage has been around for some time, and one of the things that we've really tried to work on with that is it was a challenge for us because people were using it for various things, but we looked at it as, what about backup? And we thought to ourselves, and this is the feedback we got. People say, yeah, it's great for storing a little bit of data in and doing a few things with, but you want me to store backup data? Do you realize how expensive that's going to be? And so the big feedback we got from people is like, yeah, it's cool, but I'm not going to use it for backup. So we put our heads together and we thought about it and we said, but that would be really cool if we could figure out a way to leverage this object storage. And so we figured out is if you don't want to store all your backup data in there, why not? Well, because it's expensive. So we thought, well, how can we reduce that cost? So this is where we got to the answer to that question of like, do you want to put all your data in the cloud? People say, well, no, it's too expensive. We say, well, how would you like to put all your data in the cloud and not actually have to pay to put all your data in the cloud? And that led to a feature that we've had for a little bit called Cloud Catalyst. Cloud Catalyst allowed us to leverage our existing deduplication technology to write to object storage and essentially dramatically reduce the amount of space we take up on our object storage. Now you think about this, when you look at cost charts for cloud usage, they'll tell you all about how you can get rid of your data center, you can get rid of your hardware, and that will shrink your costs. But they always say it shrinks at about 50% because the other 50% of your costs is cloud storage that they still want you to use in the cloud. Well, we come along and we say, how about we take that 50% remaining cost you have, we reduce that by 90%. And so we do that by using this deduplication technology. One of the really cool things about that is it uses and builds off of our MSDP technology. So there's a level of compatibility. So I could have had something I've been using prior to this that I could still use with this object storage. What we've done now is we've listened to some requests from people and we've optimized this and we've improved this over time. This isn't a new way of doing things per se, but we have taken this technology and we've actually refactored it so we can embed it into our MSDP pools directly. So what you had before, the user experience, you would have to have a dedicated machine for Cloud Catalyst, and Cloud Catalyst, while it was great, it could only write to one bucket. So the two things we've solved now is you can take an existing MSDP server, build your own or an appliance, and you can upgrade this to 9.0, and you will be able to, immediately after that, you can add a cloud tier. You don't have to add additional hardware. You don't have to do anything really special. It's very easy to do, and it allows you to add a cloud tier. And the thing is, it's not just one cloud tier. Like I said, there was always that question of multiple bucket support. It's not just one cloud tier. You can add actually up to, by default, 64 cloud tiers in a single machine. Now, not sure that you'd want to do that, but it definitely is possible. And it fits some use cases. But the big idea is that somebody might say, I want to have some on-prem storage and I want to keep it for a short period of time. But when I get into longer term and I want to store it longer, I want to move it to a different tier or tiers, right? So you could have, you can have multiple types of buckets or multiple storage tiers inside of one public cloud. You can use a private cloud target. You can also use multiple public cloud targets, which means that if I want to write to one provider for some data, but a different provider for another set of data, or maybe kind of mirror the two between them, I can do that. And then when you get to the idea of archive, right? This is stuff, I got to keep this stuff for 7 years, and I normally put it on tape, and I'm sick of using tape, and I would like to use cloud object storage for that. And lo and behold, the cloud providers, they've come out with some object storage targets that are priced to try and combat that, to try and be like, here's something that's compelling to say, get off tape, come to us. We support those. And not only that, I mean, they've made it cheaper to begin with. We make it even cheaper. And this is things such as Glacier, our deep archive, and Azure Archive support, which we even have. So, let's talk a little bit more about how this works. Just talk about the architecture a little bit. So our dedupe technology works in what you would call like a distributed fingerprinting model. This means that we have plugins, which you can see in this diagram, which would reside at either maybe on a server side, or it actually can be on a client side. This allows us to push the deduplication out to the source maybe, especially if you have something that's remote or doesn't have a lot of bandwidth. We can do the deduplication over on the source side, and we only have to move unique blocks of data. And that's an important thing that deduplication does, is it looks through the data as it's ingesting it, and it scans for unique blocks, and it only stores those blocks once. If it sees a block of data, a little chunk of data from your file, and it says, oh, this is new, I haven't seen this before, so it stores it. But say you back up that same file on a different client or a different machine or somewhere else, and it will get that same file, and maybe there's some changes. Somebody tweaked that document or something like that. And so it'll pick up, oh yeah, look at these things. I haven't seen these bits before. But at some point, it's going to get to a part of the document and be like, all these segments, I've seen these before. I don't need to store these. I just need to track that I've seen these. And what that does is it will go in and store this into the storage location. And this could be a local LSU. This is just on disk on the machine. It's nice and great to have there. It's fast recovery. It's right there when you need it, that sort of thing. But you also might find as, maybe I want to go directly to cloud object storage, or maybe I just want to tier to that. Those are the things we can do. And it does this by inside of a single storage server, defining multiple storage tiers. And these tiers can be like in the diagram shows, one could be going AWS S3, one could be going to Azure Blob. And you could have AWS S3 and Glacier or Deep Archive and Azure Archive. And you can have any kind of mix of those sort of deployments. And this leverages, if you're familiar with Cloud Catalyst, it leverages a lot of that technology. And what it's done is it builds off that technology and it routes through our cloud storage daemon, which allows us to really efficiently move data to the cloud. And that's really important because if you want to move your data to the cloud, time's money and it takes time to do it and you want to get it done. So it really efficiently moves it to the cloud. And it's very interesting though, because even if you were to go and move it, and let's say you're getting 2-3 terabytes per hour for a full pipe, that's all your pipe can handle. We'll max that out and we'll do that. The cool thing about it is this is optimized copy too. So we're compressing this data, we're deduplicating it as we're doing it. And as you make additional copies as stuff goes, you're going to see a performance gain from that optimized copy, maybe from local LSU or from one cloud provider to another. I mean, that means we can hit from a logical perspective, because we're not having to move all this data, we're optimizing it. We can throw data up there at 60 terabytes an hour in some cases, and it's extremely performant, and it's really been very successful, and it's a great benefit for a lot of our customers. So let's talk about some use cases, and I'll get into some of these a little bit. So the first one is it's just the basics. Normal MSDP, what can I do? I can back up to block storage. I can do dedupe to block storage. It's on a disk, and it's great. So the next one, right? This is pretty straightforward. Back up to object storage, right? This works good too. And this is, you can do a direct, you can do a copy from block storage to object storage. Those are super useful use cases. And you can do this from on-prem to the cloud or in the cloud, infrastructure as a service, or cloud to cloud. Works out great. Now, here's something interesting that I want to touch on a little bit. It's called image sharing. Image sharing is some technology we've added to this, to our cloud storage that allows us to, allows for basically cloud data reuse. This means that if I write to a bucket, my data is going to sit up there. Well, that's cool, right? But data is useful, right? Data is money. Data, there's all sorts of things I can do with data. So with image sharing, what we've done is we've made our buckets essentially self-descriptive. This means that in a net backup environment, I can be writing from one location to my object storage. And let's say that I've got a need to recover that data in that cloud provider, or maybe I want to expose it for some analytics I want to run against a database or something like that. Well, image sharing comes in and allows you to spin up an instance in the cloud, and you can connect to that same bucket, and it will be able to see all that backup data. It can do restores. It can do all that sort of work with that will help you make that data available for whatever use you would have in the cloud, including taking, if you got some VMware backups and you want to run them in EC2, you can convert them to AMIs, and it'll actually do conversions so that you can take these things and run them up. And I know we even made the setup easier so that when you have that cloud recovery server, we actually added a web UI support to walk you right through that. And it's very straightforward. It's very similar to the demo you'll see later, but it allows you to basically set it up so that you can come in there and leverage that data for whatever you need, and helps you get a little more value out of your data. Next is op-dupe to object storage. And this is what I talked about a little bit, is the optimized copy is super useful because it allows you to move the data as efficiently as possible. Think of it, it's like compression, but even better. And so it allows you to move data and to a target, but you're only going to send things to that target knows it doesn't have. And so this is like on-prem going to the cloud. It's optimized, it's very fast, and it works very well. The next thing you want to do is back up to multiple cloud LSUs. So let's say I want to go, split it. So I can, from one point, I can ingest and I can split this off in two different directions. The second to last thing is opt to cloud. So this is a good use case for someone where they have maybe one cloud provider and they need to move to a different one. Essentially, yeah, sometimes you want to have multiple copies. There's a lot of these use cases, but a big one here is because we can do the optimized copy, that cuts down on how much time and cost the customers are going to have if they need to move from one cloud provider to another. So it kind of avoids that lock-in to some cloud vendors that some people might be concerned about. And finally, air from local to cloud or from your primary infrastructure to cloud. Air is something we have that if you have one domain set up and this is a fully functioning domain, you have all your data there. Well, you may wish to have, like, say, in a cloud or a different cloud provider, a whole secondary domain that you can use for migration efforts, for DR recovery issues, and they're completely independent of each other. So we have a technology we call automatic image replication. This allows basically one pool's data to be sent to another pool's data, still optimized copy, but all of the data that the other domain would need to know how to recover that data is automatically imported into that infrastructure so that those same images are there and ready for you to use. So now we're getting to the demo part. Maya is going to do a demo of how you set up this using an existing MSDP pool. So this is the setup here is that you've just upgraded to 9.0 and you say, hey, I'd like to try out writing to the cloud. Well, this is going to go through and show how easy that is and how practical the implementation is.
Hi, this is Maya from Veritaz engineering team. Today, I'm going to give a demo about MSDP cloud configuration and backup to multiple cloud targets. So now you have upgraded and you want to add a cloud tiering to an existing MSDP storage server. It's super easy to get this done right now. All you need to do is to hit this add button to add the cloud target to the same storage server. And here, I'm just going to pick the storage server I want to add it to. I go right in here. All I need to do is to provide a disk pool name. This is going to be used as basically part of the logical element that jobs will go to. So I can have different pools inside the same storage server, and those different pools will allow me to do things like tiering data from one level to another. I can go directly to cloud, or I can have a local copy first, then go directly to cloud. After I set that up, is pretty much establishing the volume parameters. The volume parameters basically help us understand where that data is going under the covers. In this case, I'm going to use Microsoft Azure. So I just go down and I just have to select that. Once that's picked, you pick the region you want to use. You have to enter your credentials and get that set up too. You can also do additional things here, like to use the proxy server and also other stuff. Hit on fetch buckets to get the list of buckets this storage account created ahead of time. You can select an existing bucket from the list, or you can also create a new one if you want to, which is no big deal. In this case, I will add a new one. It will show up in the list and you can go use it right away. It's super easy. Simply select the bucket, and then I just have to do next. Once I review the settings, I just click finish. And now my storage pool is all set up.
Okay, that's really great right there, because you don't have to go through and do all this ahead of time, and NetBackup will take care of it all for you.
That's accurate. Yeah, now all I need to do for this is create a storage unit that I can use as a logical target for my backups or protection plans or SLPs. This is basically the thing that I would send a job to. It's simply a matter of picking it up, making sure you have a disk pool selected in it. And the same way to create an AWS storage unit. So this is basically how I define a cloud storage server. You only have to set up this once, and it's incredibly easy. So let's go back into the policies themselves. I have a handful of policies already created. Right now, I'm going to select Azure policy. And I'm going to drop down the policy storage. And you can see from here the cloud storage we have set up previously in this environment. Simply selecting it and hit on save.
Now, and keep in mind, this is all managed from a single server again. So you got the different tiers and everything like that, and all from one server.
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredibly easy. So it's all done. There you go. So what happens next? The duplicated data will be sent to cloud target automatically according to the policy schedule. But we are not going to sit here and wait for that to happen, right? Just to be quick for this demo, I'm going to manually kick off the backup process to Azure and AWS. So if you look at what's happening here, backup to multiple cloud targets are running simultaneously. And you can add more cloud targets if you want to.
Yeah, and keep in mind, this isn't just for backups, right? So this is like I talked about before, you can do the optimized copy from any MSDP source and with any MSDP backup. So if you've done a backup, 6 years ago, and you suddenly took your MSDP pool and you added this cloud tier to it, you'll be able to take that data and send it right to the cloud without having to do anything different other than just enabling this functionality.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's amazing, isn't it?
Thanks, Maya. That was a great demo, and it's always cool to see that happen. And it's like I said, it's a really short demo because it's not very hard. It's barely an inconvenience to add this stuff on there. You could take with that, simple setup right there. In just a few minutes, you didn't add just one cloud tier to an existing storage. You added two, and it's really, really fun to do that. That's a good way for you to take an existing pool you have. You've got an MSDP pool you may have been using for quite some time, and you want to add that on there. All you have to do is upgrade, and then you go to the web UI and you follow the steps that she just did. Very easy way to get you from living on-prem to living on-prem in the cloud or getting to cloud object storage. And don't forget, that's not just the hot tiers, right? Those are the cooler tiers. Those are the LTR tiers. You can add all of those inside of one storage server so that you can have those options of data that I maybe need to have, next week versus data I don't need to ever recover unless I absolutely have to with the Glacier and the LTR and archive storage. So let's sum up what we just talked about in general for this whole presentation. We talked about deduplication and the value you get from that, about how we can take data that normally would be sitting on storage, taking up a lot of time and money and cost there, reduce that to save you a lot of money, substantial amount of money, especially when you're looking at the cloud storage, which is why we have this backup to object storage solution. Not only that, we talked about the multiple bucket support. That's a big deal. The reducing the footprint to a single server that could do all of this is really a big deal, and it really makes things super easy. And the final thing we want to wrap up with is thank you. Once again, I'm John Hink, and we have Maya Zhou, and it was a pleasure talking to you.